Hello, welcome to AI in Action. My name is Maurie, and I'm here with my husband, Jim. We are here to talk about artificial intelligence, which we always do. Normally, we do this on Sundays. Today, we're doing this on a Monday. And it's kind of funny. I actually told Jim, I was like, I'd really like to start doing this on a weeknight, even if we do make it go live or drop it to our Spotify account or our Amazon account or our YouTube or all the different places that we put these videos. I don't wear makeup on Sundays. I have to get dressed Monday through Friday, and I don't normally wear makeup on Sundays. And I know that doesn't make a difference because, I look the way I look, but I just feel a little better when I have a little makeup on. So anyway, it
Well, you
is
also usually have
Monday.
you like wearing old T-shirts that have paint on them and
Yeah.
stuff like that
Yeah.
because you're doing stuff on the weekends. So I understand. It makes sense.
So you might just have to hold off on talking about artificial intelligence until Monday after work. How's that sound?
I think I can manage it.
Yeah, no, you can't wait until Monday
I w-
after work.
I
You
won't
don't you,
wait
you
till
talk about it all the time.
I won't
Yes,
wait.
and again, that is sweet tea that you see Jim drinking. That is not bourbon. So even though it's after 5 or it's 5 o'clock somewhere, that is sweet tea. So, all right, let's talk about artificial intelligence. Now, one of the things that we always talk about is about how people that are teaching artificial intelligence, like in public education, they need to be literate about AI before they can truly teach about AI. I mean, one of the things we say a lot is it would be like me asking an English AP English teacher to go in and do an AP chemistry lab, right? I mean, they need to know something about it before they can truly teach it to somebody else. So that's one of the things that we're constantly saying, AI digital literacy. So one of the things that you decided to do was actually utilize AI for something that you personally wanted because you were a little irritated about the stuff that was getting fed to you by the algorithms. So what is it that you did to try to get around the algorithms? I thought it was really interesting.
Well, the first thing I started talking to you about when we were actually on the way back from California in those 34 hours I had you trapped in a vehicle. The
Yes.
um, the thing that bothers me is I like to read a variety of news and of course, a lot of it's political news nowadays, but because I am male, over 50 ish, and I live in Texas, there's an assumption that I want to hear the hard right, ultra conservative stuff. And so tend to get that on my feed. And you and I we used to be considered actually conservative. I'm not sure by today's standards we are, but I don't like people feeding me stuff that it thinks I want to read
Thanks.
all the time. I
Right.
don't mind it some because it's trying to find the algorithms are trying to find what it thinks I'm interested in, so it'll keep me occupied. So I'll look at ads, and I get all that. But I had really thought about creating different accounts, like and not ever reading certain types of news unless I'm on a different account or randomizing the news I read to see if I could do it. And I started thinking, maybe AI can help me with this. So, from a practical perspective, I obviously read a lot of AI news, but I like a lot of other stuff too. Obviously, and I tend to read stuff about hardware, computer software. I'm a little bit narrow focused with that. I think there's a picture of us on our honeymoon, and I'm sitting on a beach reading Radio Electronics magazine. But I
And
wanted
that was a long time
that was a
ago.
couple of years ago because because Radio Electronics doesn't exist anymore. Uh, Hopefully that beach still does. But anyway, I wanted to see if I could get AI to help me with it. So I decided first I tried Perplexity, but it wasn't doing what I wanted. And I thought, well, Google is the king of search, so let's go with Google. And they
So
have
you went to
AI search
Gemini.
now.
You went to
I went
Gemini.
well. I went to Google AI search, and it
Oh,
uses
okay.
Gemini by default.
Okay.
And
So let me tell you. So what the prompt that you used, you actually
yep,
sent me the prompt. You said, I want you to find the top 5 AI news from last week from reputable sources across any industry. Top being defined as the ones that generated the most attention, but some reasonable criteria you decide on. That is your primary task. then perform an analyze or an analysis of each article to see if it connects to K-12 education, either directly or indirectly, and describe why or why not it connects.
It's a good thing that I don't get graded on grammar by an AI, because that was
Yeah,
pretty bad.
you tend to send out emails to our district, and I'm always like, oh my God, Jim, you needed a comma, or you said this word instead of that word, or anyway.
Yeah. I told you the last time we were talking, that teacher told me when I was in UI already writing that I had great thought flow, but I had very poor grammar, and that really
Yes.
hasn't improved much.
Okay.
Though I did take
So,
college level grammar. But anyway, it said, okay, here's a selection of 5 impactful stories from the week of April 7th to the 13th, 2025, chosen based on the criteria.
okay.
And anyway, I'm going to let you kind of start on them, but I
All right.
thought it was interesting what it chose.
So let's talk about the top 5 as chosen by an AI. So we're going to talk the top 5 things that happened last week. Stanford University released their 2025 AI Index, and it shows a record growth in AI capabilities, investment, and regulation. Okay, so how does that connect to K-12? And it told you it definitely connects to K-12.
Okay,
Why?
go ahead.
Because the report's findings, it's about how the AI is rapidly advancing, or AI technology is rapidly advancing. Regulations are necessitating or necessary to update curricula in K-12 education, which unfortunately that's really not happening. The last time I looked, there were 19 schools in the state of Texas out of like 25,000 schools that actually have.
But there's a lot.
Okay. I can look up the exact number, but there's like only 19 schools, I think it was, that had AI curriculum already.
Right.
So they're saying that students are going to need to learn about AI's impact on society, ethical implications, and relevant policies. And additionally, educators must consider how to adapt teaching practices with the integration of AI tools. So
that
that's
goes really well with your digital literacy push you've been doing. You got to wonder, did the AI know you and I talk about that all the time? Because
I'm sure it did.
That literally dovetails right into the idea of what you just said before we started this,
right?
Which is, anyway, well, or maybe Stanford just agrees with us. So
that would be nice if Stanford agreed with me. Absolutely,
it would.
Yes. All right. So the next one, Microsoft's Llama 4. Heard.
I think
okay.
I think that's what it's called. Actually, I don't know. I've heard of Llama 4, but I haven't. If it's actually called HERD, not HARD, I hadn't heard that one. But anyway.
Okay. So Llama 4 Heard and free AI skills training. So Microsoft Azure AI Foundry has done, they're doing some free AI skills training initiative. Okay.
Well, and what's interesting about this, first of all, let's just look at this. We're talking about digital literacy a lot. Google AI search decided that champagnemagazine.com was a legitimate source. You and I talk about this a lot. People talk about, we were just having this discussion about an AI, about a post that somebody had done where they talked about giving teachers, bonuses based on their effectiveness. And the first thing I said was, define effectiveness. What is that? And most likely it's high stakes testing, which is incredibly stupid in my opinion, because I hate high stakes testing. But again, when you start talking about digital literacy, why is this magazine a legitimate source? Let's assume for the moment it is, that Google's smarter than all of us, and it probably is. So this is, it tells you what the significance are and why this is important. And then it says it connects to AI because of the availability of these powerful models, and most importantly, the free AI skills training. The interesting thing is that, Llama 4 is an pseudo open source. The model they're talking about is so big you can't run it on your local machine, at least not yet. And I don't think they completely open. They're getting a lot of flack from this. All these Llama stuff generally comes from, it starts from Meta. And so I'm assuming that Meta is probably behind this one as well, even though it says Microsoft, and that they are not completely open sourcing it, but eventually maybe you could run it locally. So point is, they're giving away free resources for education.
Okay.
And for some reason, this is a legitimate source.
Okay.
Now, we know why the next one is a legitimate source. So I'll let you read the headlines because we
It
know why
was,
Google thinks it's legitimate.
yes. So Google's Gemini 2.5 Pro with multimodal capabilities. So they decided to do multimodal 1 million token context, and it supports real time video
That's new.
analysis.
I hadn't seen that
Yeah.
one before. I'd like to
So
try that.
it's blog.google. So
Yeah.
it's the Google blog.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Google says we're legitimate. I promise.
Right. So they're having advancements in multimodal AI. It can process various types of data like text, image, videos, enhance AI applications. So how is that connected to K-12? Well, multimodal AI just opens up opportunities for like diverse, interactive, all these different types of learning that can happen if you have multimodal. Because you have kids who learn. I mean, you're one of the kids who learn better when you see something, not when you read something, when
I
you
actually
hear it.
learn. I have I have a learning problem with reading
Mm-hmm.
stuff. I need to hear it. I touch it, hear it. If I play with it, kind of a tactile touch kind of thing.
Right.
And you being a counselor, I'm sure you had kids with learning issues the way I do. I cannot just read something, a lot of text. I will not. My brain will drift away because I
You
can't
skip.
stay. I can't
Yeah.
stay focused, so I'll skip around. Point is that this multimodal AI is a big deal.
Right.
I don't want to go over that. There's two or three more. I do want to mention what they are, but I don't want to go over them in detail. What I really want to focus on is the point, because I want to get on to our AI traveler thing. The point
Okay.
is that these five were chosen because they are making headlines. OpenAI is getting a $40 billion funding round. I think they're worth $300 billion is their valuation now. And it's even said this is indirect but significant because of their work toward smarter AI stuff. So that one was
Mm-hmm.
kind of a stretch to connect it, and you can tell that it's stretched a bit.
Well, the more money that goes into big companies, the more the educational space is going to be given things that the big companies are like making for corporate America and then shoehorning it into education.
Yeah, but in this case, they're saying, we're doing great stuff, and we promise you it's going to be great stuff for the kids for adaptive skills and yada yada yada. Amazon's Nova Act agent. I haven't really been paying much attention to what Amazon's doing. I do know this news source is TechCrunch. I haven't paid a lot of attention to what they're doing, but they're talking about what they're doing. Amazon, I think, of all the companies, is probably focused the most on how do I utilize it to improve business processes, which is what they've been doing with AI and machine learning for a long time. The last one that I added in manually, because you reminded me that I did this last night, OpenAI decided to release their latest model. I have no idea what it does, but it is cheaper. That's the effect on K-12 education. It showed up in Agnes today. Whenever I logged into Agnes,
Agnes is our AI tool that we can pull in all
yes,
of the latest large language
yep.
models.
And
Yes.
in this case, it's got a default behavior that I'm not happy with that I need to change, which is if a new model comes out, it goes, "Oh, you must want this one," and it puts it right out there. And I need to make sure it's not too expensive. This one has through the API, I have 4.1, I have 4.1 mini and 4.1 nano, and they are cheaper than the 4.0 series ones that we've been using. So we are going to adopt them. And that's what's cool about the way we've done it is we can literally, this is not even in ChatGPT yet, but we can literally adopt it tomorrow. It's running today in
Right.
Agnes, which I think is kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
So my point of what I was doing was my criteria was AI and it was K-12 because that's the two things that I deal with the most. You could be, it doesn't have to be AI. You could
Yeah.
set up your own proprietary, custom news feed
If
where
I'm
you
a
can,
doctor, a
yeah.
lawyer,
And the thing is
whatever.
that you can dig in a little bit. Like you can take a news story and go, okay, this is interesting. Give me a little bit more detail about it. Whereas if you're just, nowadays, especially if you're just scrolling through your normal news feed, it's keeping you in that bubble
Mm-hmm.
of what it is it thinks you want to hear.
Mm-hmm.
And as much as I don't like the political discourse in the world today, I tend to read Fox News's version and CNN's version because I want to see what the two opposite poles look
And
like in a particular
it's
news story.
probably somewhere in the middle. It's
And then
probably somewhere in the
and
middle.
then sometimes I try to get the AI to help me find the middle. What is
Mm-hmm.
the reality of what's happening here? Which way does it actually lean? It would be great. Of course, people freak out over kids using this, but it would be great for, Jill Dillard, Miss Dillard, the one that teaches at the high school, that she's retiring this year, but she taught government to all three of our kids. Being able to look at that level of debate and argument about a particular political topic and see the different views and biases and all that stuff of the different news sources, and then kind of playing with those biases, I think that's an awesome learning experience. I would love to go through it. I think my kids would have loved it. Anyway,
To me, that is the true definition of critical thinking.
I think so too.
To question and then figure it out on your own. So don't let them feed it to you the way they want it to be fed to you.
These
figure it out on
algorithms,
your own.
I mean, TikTok they didn't even try to hide it. TikTok was originally created, and it basically said you don't choose. Like in Facebook and the others, when you set up your account, you can choose your interests. TikTok goes, we'll just decide what you're interested in and give it to you.
Right.
That may have changed, but I think that's how it originally was, to where its algorithm, it decided what you needed. You talk about living in a bubble.
Right.
I mean, because once you start looking at a certain number of them, it's going to make a lot of assumptions about what it thinks you want. I think it's maybe got some randomized stuff in there where it'll feed you random stuff, but I don't think so. But anyway.
Well, let's go back to what my sociology professor said. Your definition of a situation. If I defined a situation to be real, then it's real to me. Well,
Yep.
if you're in that bubble to where you're like, if I click on a situation and I click on a situation and I do it over and over again, and then it starts feeding me more of the same, then my reality is going to become more real to me, because I'm getting fed over and over that I am correct. And so, I mean, that's a slippery slope. So now let's switch over and talk about this 34 hours that you had me trapped in a car.
Well,
yes.
First of all, let's back up a minute before you get to that. I wanted to do an AI Traveler series for a long time where once we get different people, I'd still like to do it. We get different people who travel and then they utilize AI. Our first one we did, and we've done a little bit with it since, but the first one we did was our daughter when she went on her honeymoon. And she was our first AI Traveler. She went to the Mediterranean, and we talked about that on a previous podcast, but basically she liked using AI because the internet was slow and it would take longer to load if she had to load all the ads that Google feeds you. So we decided to do the AI Traveler, and now you can tell them about me trapping you for 34. It wasn't my idea to drive, by the way. It was your idea.
No, it was not your idea to drive. It was mine, but I assumed that we would do things like, I don't know, listen to music occasionally.
We did.
Maybe a total of 1 hour. Maybe.
That's still music.
So I did a LinkedIn post about being trapped for 34 hours in a car with somebody who is AI obsessed. It was very interesting. It was interesting, and it helped me stay awake. That is true. But let's talk about what we did. First thing that we used AI for, or that I used AI for, is I knew that we were speaking at Hudson-Tillotson University the day that we were planning on leaving. And I knew that we couldn't leave Austin until about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. But I didn't want to just drive all night, but we had to get there into San Diego by a certain time. So I went to an AI, I went to ChatGPT, and I said, hey, I'm leaving Austin, Texas at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I want to go to San Diego, but I want to go ahead and stay 2 nights on the road. I'd like to be in so I can have dinner when I get there and have a good night's sleep. And so it told me the nearest towns that would have a decent lodgings that I could get to. And it did this. It did great. It did great. On the way down, we stayed in Ozona. The hotel was good.
It was nice.
We had a decent meal. The people were friendly. And then we ended up staying.
Found your coffee shop for you too.
And oh my goodness, where was that the coffee shop? Glitzy's Coffee Shop. It was in Fort Stockton. Got a t-shirt, but it found me a great coffee shop on the trip down. So we used it for stuff like that. And I didn't use like an agent. I actually just used my chat that I had on my phone. So that was great. So some of the other things though that we did that we thought was really interesting is that we would be driving down I-10 and I would make a comment because I was trying to talk about things other than AI. I would say, oh, I wonder what those mountains are. Oh, I wonder what that cactus is.
So read the first prompt. Read the first prompt.
So this is what we started with. So the first prompt that you put in, and you went back and pulled all these prompts out of your phone because you were the passenger most of the time. At mile marker 202, out between I-10. I'm maybe 50 or 60 miles from Fort Stockton, past El Paso.
Is
I'm
that
heading
true? I think I might have got
east.
that backwards.
I
Isn't
think
Fort
you might
Stockton
have.
Fort Stockton's before El Paso? Anyway, I'm heading
Anyway,
east.
but it knew you were
Wait a
headed
minute. So
east.
this was on our return trip. I'm heading east. Okay, I see what I did wrong. I pulled the. This is out of order, so this wasn't
Okay.
our order. But
All
continue,
right.
because if we're heading east,
Well,
we're on our way back.
okay. Well, we were headed east. There was a mountain range in in the picture you sent it. So you took a picture of the mountain range
Out the window,
outside the window,
going
and you
95 miles
said,
an hour.
"Hey, well, we were not going 95 miles. I caught that." So there's a mountain range in the picture. I'm curious if you know what it is. You even told it again that I included a picture. And it came back and said, based on your location, roughly mile marker 202 on I-10, 50 to 60 miles west of Fort Stockton, heading east, the most likely candidate is the western edge of the Davis Mountains. Here is how one can piece that together. And then it tells you more information.
Yes. Yeah, I didn't
Yeah.
paste all the information in. The when we started doing this, I'm like, you know what? Our kids, the if parents start doing this, if parents, a normal kids ask questions like ours did, they're going to have a power grid just to run the AI that my kids use for car trips, because
Mm-hmm.
they would have asked 15,000 questions on a trip like this. So
Well,
I liked all the prompts. This one right here, the next prompt was
let's go to the
as
bottom. Let's go to the bottom because you did put them in out of order. So
well.
the
Yeah,
first
it's kind
thing
of
that you
random.
put in there is that we were 15 minutes out of El Paso. We were on I-10. We were looking to the left because we were headed west. How far is it, do you think, to the Mexican border? We were wondering, as a crow flies, how far is it? And it was like, 10 to 20 miles from the border as the crow flies. So the mountain range we were seeing off in the distance was basically the border area between the United States and Mexico. We said, I'm going to stay in the Mission Valley Doubletree in San Diego. I heard there's a trolley that will take me into San Diego Convention Center. Is that true? And does it run on Sundays? It came back and told you absolutely. The MTS, it's the green line. It
Which it
provides
was.
service from Mission Valley to San Diego, including on Sundays, every day, every 15 minutes from about 5 o'clock in the morning until midnight. So it gave you all that information. How many times have I searched or had to get like a pamphlet from a concierge desk
Mm-hmm.
and the concierge desk was closed or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and so the ease at which we were able to use this was amazing. Okay.
I think the point is the conversation. You and I talk about this a lot with AI. I have been in technology since I was a teenager, which is a long time. And the biggest problem I've always had with it is our interface to the technology is awful.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not natural to walk around with a little tiny screen in front of your face. And when I was 25 years old, it didn't bother me as much, but I still can't type very well on it. I know that my dad, for example, before he passed away, he was a mechanic, and his hands were so calloused from hard labor that those capacitive screens didn't even work for him.
Mm-hmm.
He
Mm-hmm.
started having inability to talk or form. So he was losing the ability to interact with technology. And
Yes,
AI gives you back that ability to interact in a natural way. I mean,
that is correct.
recently they said that Johnny or Joni Ivy, whatever his name is, the guy that helped design, he worked with Steve Jobs, he helped design the original iPhone, that he's talking about partnering with OpenAI. And one of the things they're talking about is a cell phone that doesn't have a screen, that it's completely AI driven. I don't know if that's practical, but I do know that that's the right direction to be thinking, because especially for elderly people, they can't use those cell phones very well. Maybe when we're really old, we'll be able to, or maybe not. But I still think this
Well,
is a great thing to do.
I do think it has to do with what you're accustomed to. One of the reasons that I wanted to buy a Tesla and start having self-driving capabilities is because when I'm 80, I want to be comfortable getting in a vehicle that I am not controlling so that
Mm-hmm.
I can then be driven to different places that I want to go to. Because by the time I hit 80, I think that going up that learning curve, going up, it it becomes harder and harder to get outside of your comfort zone the older that you get. I mean, we've
And if you
talked
live
about
in,
it. Your
yeah, if you live
world
in the city,
shrinks.
if you live in the city,
No big
then
deal.
you can Uber, Waymo,
Whatever.
Lyft, but you live in a rural area like we do. I don't see Uber, all of those, but maybe with self-driving, maybe they will come out here. And do I think it's perfect? Not yet, but we've seen the improvements in technology. It's a pretty big one.
Yes.
There was one last one. I think I left it out too. Oh yeah, no, this is the one I like. This one. You and I were you have a thing about trains. So if you look at prompt number 3, I
Okay,
thought
so
you'd
first of
appreciate
all,
that.
the trains that we saw going out to California or coming from California into Texas were so long. I mean, we would see a train on that train track and it was miles long, it seemed like, right? And so I was like, I have my CDL. I wonder if I could drive a train. And we were kind of laughing about it. So what do? Yeah, take out your phone, you push the little button and you say, what does it take to become a person who drives trains for a living? Do I have to have some type of license? And it literally gave you the answer for the US. It gave you the answer for the other countries. They were very
Mhm.
similar. It sounds like if I ever decided to retire from K-12 education, I could definitely go drive a train for a living.
You know what I want to know though?
Hmm.
You see the train miles long, you see another train miles long, and they were headed toward each other. I only saw one set of tracks most of the time. I mean, the pull off thing,
Right.
that seems like if you get that schedule off, you're going to have a really big problem because those trains are
It's
headed right toward each other.
Well, it's kind of like air traffic control, right? I mean,
Yeah,
you
except air
have to
traffic
have
control,
those
you got a lot,
controllers.
but you've got a lot of ways to move with air traffic control. When you're on a train track, your movement is very restricted.
Well, I'm sure there's somebody
We
who
didn't see
does
any
make.
crashes.
We didn't see any crashes, and we did see some that were actually stopped, right,
Yes, we
in some
did.
different areas.
Yes, we
So,
did.
okay, we are almost out of time, so we need to
What's
wrap up. We're actually
what's
going to
next?
stay at what's next. Oh, what is next? Everything's kind of slowed down just a little bit.
Well, what about May 5th? We're going to be
We're
we
going to
decided
do a
to go. We're going
state
to
of
do
AI.
something here locally, State of AI. We usually do that about once a year or so here at our school district. And I told you what I always do. I'm going to put the thing out there, and about 5 people are going to sign up.
I
And
think
I
you're
was
at
off
50,
again.
50 something.
60, actually.
We're at 60 now. So, and I know several people asked me, as a matter of fact, somebody asked me today if you could bump it to 4:45. They didn't want to say anything, but they drive an afternoon bus route and they can't. And I was like, start at 4:30. We'll have conversation for a while first. Everyone will get settled in, just walk in late. So I
Mm-hmm.
told her just to go ahead and do that. But
And I'm
yeah,
going to
people are
change
really interested.
I'm going to change the presentation again because you love it when I do that.
Well, I will allow you to change it then. And
Hey,
then
you
you
know
can
what?
just
I've
share
told
it
you
with me.
before I'll do the presentations, but you never like they're not whatever it is that you think they should be. And plus they're not in Canva because I can't use Canva, which you don't
Well,
like. So don't pretend
just
like you
give
wouldn't
me
take it
your
away from me.
outline. Give me your outline and I'll do it. So, but you'd be running out of time. So you need to get
Okay.
that to me. So,
Okay.
all right, we are going to sign off for now. I would like to say thank you guys very much for listening in. I know that quite often we are very random, but it's real, right? It's the random thoughts of Maurie and Jim
Yep.
concerning artificial intelligence. If you want more information about what we do professional development on the side outside of being in the trenches at in K-12 district. You can find information at aiedpro.com. And of course, I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me on LinkedIn and connect. So we hope you guys have a marvelous rest of the week.